So, hi everyone. As all of you know, this is a webinar series that we've been doing from I think end of January, and I see some of you are being repeat attendees. So, thank you so much. We love your enthusiasm, and that keeps us moving and doing all of these for you. So, as you already know, or for new attendees, I am Monica, and I lead the customer education program here in Rocketlane. And to put it simply, if you are super confident with using Rocketlane, that's the biggest achievement I would say for me. And all of our initiatives are centered around that as well, where we have built an academy where you can self-learn Rocketlane. We have a help center where you can read about our features in detail and use it to implement it with your team. I mean, for your business and use cases. And webinar series, something that we started recently, and we've been actively doing that. We did take a break last month because we were involved in creating a course around financial management, which is a module in Rocketlane. That if you are looking to use Rocketlane to for your financials, for tracking your revenue and measuring your profits and profit margins, I would say that's a great place to start because we've just put it up, and we would love for you to use it if you are already a user who is doing financials in Rocketlane, or if you're looking forward to use it, that would also be great. It will be a great place for you to start learning about how to do that. So that's again a tip that I can give you. We were a bit busy doing that last month, but we are back, and this time we are doing time tracking and utilization. And yeah, that's a quick introduction. Let's delve into the session right away. Yes. So let's start with a good story first. We've been doing that so far, so we'll do that again. First is why do you need to track time? And if you're someone who's looking to track time from now on for your projects, this webinar is going to help you because it can help you understand or emphasize on the need to do it right away. And if you're already doing time tracking for your projects, we are here to let you know the best ways to do that with Rocketly. First, so why do you need to track time? So I think time always translates to money. And anybody who runs a business looks forward to the profitability that it brings. And obviously, in this world, we have so many competitors, but tracking time is something that's going to give you a competitive advantage in the market because you are going to be completely aware of how your time is utilized in projects, how much of that time is going to be billable, and how much of your time are you spending in doing high value work. Not just that, if you're a project manager who's closely monitoring how time is tracked on your projects, there is a huge possibility that you can avoid scope creep from happening because you are looking at how your team is utilizing their time, how they're utilizing the time in projects and tasks and activities in the project. And if you see something that's going amiss, you can quickly intervene and stop any scope creep from happening, or go back to your clients and revisit your project plan and revisit your billing methods and come back and just make sure that you are not losing out on time and money. Next is with respect to your team. You will be adding a lot of accountability in your team members' plates. You will give them more transparency in the work that they do. It will definitely help them understand how much of their time they're spending on doing high value work and how much of their time goes into spending things that you can do using an AI or take help of an AI and so on. Next is client satisfaction. So, whenever you are transparent with how you utilize time on clients' projects and let them know about it, I think that makes them not just happy, but more confident with the services that you provide. So, client satisfaction, for example, if you're sending them an invoice for a time and material project, if you attach a timesheet, along with it, they will be able to understand how much of your time goes into doing things for them and how better it is utilized and so on. With that being said, next point comes in, I mean, next part that we're going to discuss is, are you going to do time tracking and project management in the same tool? If you say yes, I think that is the best thing to do because data is at times scary when you have to integrate it. So when you are marrying the time tracking data with your project data, if you're not doing it in the same system, if you're not doing time tracking and project management in the same tool, there's a high possibility that you're going to spend lots of time in sifting through multiple systems to marry all this data and make sense out of it and draw inferences from it. But using Rocketlane, you can avoid this because we have a robust project management tool and also a time tracking and timesheet management tool. Next is what we already discussed. You will be able to deliver projects faster and with higher quality with a confident team at your disposal if you use both of these aspects in the same tool. Next, we have centralized data. So, when all of this data exists in one system, instead of running reports using other tools or BI tools, you can do all of that in Rocketlane. And the cutting edge here is we have released a time analytics report that's so elaborate you don't have to look at anything else over this because we have tried to bring all of that into one system and give you everything you need to see in one place. We will be looking at it shortly. We have something really important and something that you need to look at right away: utilization. So, next is utilization. So, utilization is basically how you and your team utilize time on projects. It can be billable, it can be non billable. And with respect to projects, billable time is really important because the amount of time that you spend doing billable work directly translates into money. That's something that we'll be looking at today. So there's a lot of theory. Let's delve deeper into the project itself. So if you're wondering how to start setting up time tracking, all you need to do is be an admin. And as an admin, you can directly go into your avatar, select settings, navigate to time tracking, and enable this option. So once this is toggled on, you're free to set up time tracking the way you want it, be the process that your team follows, the way that you want to track time and record revenue, and so on. So let's start by understanding what entails time tracking. So when it comes to time tracking, it's all about your team members accounting for the time that they spend in projects. And the way they do it is using timesheets. So first is timesheets and when it needs to be submitted. You can determine the date and the time at which the timesheets need to be due. And if your team members, that's something that you can set up here. As you can see, I've set it up to be on a Friday at 6 p.m. Next is not everybody can be on top of these things. And to make your agents more diligent with these things, you can send them reminders about these timesheet use. So it can be sent anytime from 28 hours to 1 hour. And this is exactly how it'll look like. Great. That's how you send out reminders for your team members to submit timesheets. Next is approval workflow. So you can determine who approves these timesheets. Is it going to be a project owner or the timesheet approver for the employee? So when I say timesheet approver for the employee, it's the person who is the immediate manager of the employee. So when you invite a team member, you can select the timesheet approver for that team member. So you can decide if this person is going to approve the team member's timesheets or if it's going to be the project owner of the projects for which they are tracking time. Next, you can also determine against which your team needs to track time. Is it going to be for the entire project, which is on a high level, or at a granular level, which can be tasks or phases or milestones? Let me quickly show you how that looks like in a timesheet. So I'm adding a project, and these are tasks. Since I've selected the option as tasks, milestones, and activities, the system allows me to track time on individual tasks. About this, we're going to see shortly. Next is activities. So when it comes to tracking time, you're not only going to do that for all the tasks, but also for meetings that you do with customers, that is, associated with the project, or any preparation that you do for these meetings. That also can be an activity that needs to be part of your time tracking process. So to do that, you can toggle this on and add all the activities that your team can track time against. Later, when you run reports, you can see what are all the activities against which your team is tracking time. So here you can see that we've already added these activities that the team can choose while they're submitting timesheets. We'll see that as we are submitting timesheets. I'll show you how this looks like. If you don't want any restrictions and you want your teams to add activities that they perform, you can just toggle this off. Next is an important entity when it comes to time tracking, which is adding categories to the time that you track. That's what I said we will see quickly. So here, as I'm tracking time, it's asking me to choose a category under which I worked on while doing this task. So if this is something that I did, for example, let's choose a task where we discuss the scope and goals for the customer. I'll add time, and it asks me to choose a category under which I worked on. So this will go under configuration. And if there are any notes that I want the timesheet approver to see, I will add it right here. So those are categories. You can predetermine those. And if you make this mandatory, the team cannot submit the timesheet without submitting this category. Again, this is later used when you're running reports where you can see how much time your team is utilizing when they are working on certain things part of these categories. So if you see that your team is spending lots of time in customer meetings, you can definitely have a conversation with them, understand what they need to enable them better to do customer meetings and spend less time on it. Same goes with other things like deck preparation or documentation and so on. Next is locking your timesheet. So with timesheet management also comes a lot of limitations. For example, if a team member has submitted a timesheet and it's been approved, if they want to make changes to it, you can ensure that it's locked and they're not able to change it by checking this box. By unchecking this, you give them the liberty to change their time entries even after it's approved. And there is also something called as lock date, which you can set up so that your team is tracking time, within the specified time period. So if you want them to track time as in when they do their projects and within a particular date, you can set the date as the lock date. Calendar integration is something that we'll see in detail soon. Moving on, we have has to be reported. So for example, here you can see that the team is tracking time on a weekly basis. So if you say that I want to limit my team from tracking more than 40 hours per week, you can add it here. You can mention that my team should not track more than 40 hours per week and they won't be able to do it because their work capacity per week will be 40 hours. And you can also determine exactly how much time your team should track per week. And if the time track should be less, you know let's say you don't want your team to track anything less than 40 hours, you can also specify that here, and the team and the system will understand that and not let your team members track time if that condition is not met. Finally, here, let's say you have exec members in your company who needn't track time and you don't want to send them reminders regarding timesheets. What you can do is you can add them to this exclusion list, and even if they don't track time, they won't be receiving these reminders from you. Next, let's go ahead and see how to track time. So as we saw earlier, if you're trying to track time against projects, you can just add project, add the tasks for which you're tracking time, and submit the timesheet. But if you know you want to add all the tasks that you completed per week, you can just select this option as I did, click on add tasks, select the status of those tasks. It can be completed, in progress, submitted last week, whichever status that is. And then system will automatically populate those tasks for you. All you need to do is select these tasks and add it to the timesheet. And once you're done adding time for these tasks, you can just submit your timesheet. Okay. Let me quickly refresh and try again. Yeah, the changes that I just made took some time to sync and it's done. And here you can see that since I added the restriction as submit a minimum of 40 hours, the system is not letting me submit timesheets. If I remove that, I'll be able to submit timesheets. And one other thing that you can also do is Yeah. So calendar integration. So that's something that we will see next. Yeah. So I know we already spoke about it, right? We go on lots of customer meetings, and all of those also things that we do related to the projects. So what should you do so that your calendar events are automatically synced into Rocketlane and become activities against which you can track time? That's exactly what we facilitate you to do as well. Here, as an admin, you can enable this integration for your entire company. And as a company, you'll be using a suite of email domain. It can be a Google Calendar, it can be an Outlook calendar, whichever if you use a G Suite, you can choose Google Calendar. If you use a Microsoft Suite, you can use Outlook Calendar. And once you choose that, your team will be able to integrate their calendar and track time on it. So all they need to do is navigate to their timesheets from the left navigation bar. Here, there will be an option that says Add from Calendar. Here, all they need to do is sign in with their Microsoft or Google account, and they're all set as they allow Rocketlane to access the calendar activities and lets you import the events. I'll quickly show you how that looks like. So here I've linked my Google Calendar, and once I click on Add from Calendar, you will be able to see all the events in my calendar populate here. I've already added two events. That's the ones that you see here. If I want to add one more, the system will ask me to which project I want to associate this meeting with. So I'm going to select a project, and it will also ask me which task I need to associate this particular meeting with. I'll do that, and the category is something that you can choose. And as soon as you click on add activity, this particular entry will be part of your timesheet. So you can see that the meeting lasted for 30 minutes. The system has identified that and auto populated it here. Once you're done, you can submit your week for approval. And as a timesheet approver or as a project owner, you will be able to see all the timesheets that are awaiting approval under here. And if you click approval, if you click approve, system will send out an email to uh, the timesheet submitter that it's been approved. But as a approver, you will receive an email that this particular person has submitted timesheet. And if you want to access your email to review and approve these timesheets, you can click on review, and it'll take you exactly to the team members timesheet. Yes. So here you can see the team member's timesheet that was submitted. You can either approve it or reject it. So if you reject it, they will receive a note from you saying, this timesheet has been rejected. You need to make changes to it and so on. And once they do that, you can again go through the approval flow. And one interesting thing that you can do is if you are working on the same projects from last week, you can add rows from last week, and that will also quickly get added to your timesheet. Yeah. So the one that we saw was this week. Let me quickly navigate to the previous week. Here you can see that I've already submitted timesheets. And if you're wondering what these purple boats represent, it's the time offs that I applied in the system. So Rocketlane also allows you to manage your time offs and holidays that reflect across your timesheets, your resource management, and so on. And if you are applying a week long leave, you will be exempted from receiving the timesheet overdue notification because the system will identify that you have been, you have applied time off for the entire week and you needn't submit timesheet for that week. So this is what it is denoted by. And if you're wondering how to submit timesheets, it is an individual's, process. It is an individual process. As a team member, you can navigate to your avatar, go to your profile, and under time off and holidays, you can click apply time off, choose the dates, give any note to someone who you're notifying about your time off, select the type of time off, it's a full day or a half day, or if it's a custom permission for 2 hours that you're taking and so on. Select the people that you want to notify under here and just quickly apply time off. And as I said, this will reflect across your timesheets. and also resource management. So, for example, under resource management, if you're looking at a certain team member's timesheet, you can quickly see the time off that they applied, denoted by a purple confetti. So here, I had applied for the time off for the entire week of the second week of May, and it's denoted like this. So we ensure that whatever actions that you perform in a certain module reflects across every other module under which to which these modules have their roots on. So time tracking has its roots on financials, uh, time offs, and resource management, and everywhere you'll be able to see the same consistent data because everything is under one system. Next, we did elaborate about the categories that you can add while you're tracking time and how they will translate into reports. So that's exactly what we're seeing here. I'll quickly tell you how to get to this report, but this is how it looks like. Here you can see the categories under which time was tracked, the number of hours that were tracked. Out of the number of hours tracked, how many were billable and how many were non-billable. So if you have tracked time on a task that is a billable task, then automatically the billable hours will keep increasing. If you're tracking time on a non-billable task, then again, the non-billable hours will increase. And here you can see just by glancing how much time your team is spending on each category. And if you feel that certain categories don't deserve so much time to be tracked, or so much billable hours or non-billable hours tracked against them, you can again go back to your team, enable them to better make use of their time, or teach them how to use AI or other soft skills to kind of reduce the time that they spend in non-productive activities. So this is a great way for you to kind of understand where your team spends most of their time on. So next is what we spoke about at first, the in detail reporting that Rocketlane provides you, where you can see everything related to time tracking and how your team is performing in terms of utilization. So as we already know, utilization is basically on paper, it's the number of time, number of hours your team tracks time divided by their total capacity. Capacity is basically the number of hours they work in a week. So if you're wondering how to see that, it's under each team member's profile where you can see the weekly capacity of the team member. And utilization is basically number of hours they track divided by this capacity. So we have an entire suite of reports for time tracking that you can access under reports. So these are the 5 types of reports that give you all the details about how time is tracked in your system and how you can gain inferences from these reports. First, let's talk about the utilization report. As I already mentioned, team members' performances are direct reflections of their utilization. And as they track time, you can see their utilization under this report. You can toggle between billable and general utilization. General utilization has everything from billable to non billable utilization summed up. Billable utilization is just time spent by your team on doing billable activity. So you can see that based on role. So here I've grouped it based on role. And you can see the utilization based on role. You can set up a time range for which you want to see this data. And also you can categorize it as quarterly, monthly, or weekly. This is as straightforward as it is. Based on this, you can see the team's performance as well and take actionable insights from this. Next is the report that directly gives you data on how your team is submitting timesheets and how they can get their timesheets approved. So just by looking at it, these cross marks tell you. So here, the first thing that you need to do is see the submissions for the week. So if you look at this report, you can see that for these weeks, though no submissions were made by the team member. If there is a green tick mark, it means they have submitted timesheet for that week. If there is a purple cross, it means that that team member has taken time off on that week. And that's the reason they weren't able to submit timesheets. You can also see the approval status here. So if again the same applies for approvals as well, if there are cross marks, it means that these are all timesheets that were unapproved. If it's green check mark, these timesheets are approved. If it's a purple cross, it means it's a time off and no timesheet needs to be submitted or approved. If you want to see this data in actual hours, you can go ahead and toggle this on and see the actual time tracked. So here you can see that no time was tracked. Here you can see that 50 hours were tracked in that week and so on. Another thing is you can export this entire report as a CSV with the team member fields and use it to your use it to do any other actionable item. Next is project time analytics. So another major advantage of time tracking is if you have allocated time in your projects, it's basically your allocated time, and that is something that you do while you're planning your project. With respect to hours tracked, it's basically real time, and your team members are doing this time tracking in reality, and you can actually compare this planned time with the actual time to see if you are allocating the right amount of time for the projects. So if there is an SMB onboarding project that you're doing, and you have allocated 40 hours for the project, but the team has tracked time only for 20 hours, it means that the project is getting completed ahead of time. So you can accordingly go back and adjust your allocated hours by getting these inferences and actionable insights from these reports. Here you can clearly see the total allocated hours for the all the projects, number of hours tracked on all the projects. You can also add filters to see it only for a few projects. And out of the tracked hours, so many are billable and so many are non-billable. Out of these, approved timesheets contribute about 63 hours, and unapproved hours contribute about 24 hours. So these are all things that you can just take a glance and understand how your projects are performing in terms of time. You can see the same data as a chart, breakdown chart, and also as an underlying summary table. Here you can see all the individual projects against which hours were allocated, hours were tracked, out of which how many were billable, non-billable, how many were approved and unapproved. This is also available to be exported as a CSV. Next is a report that you are familiar with because we just saw it. It's a category time analytics report. I told you how you can access it, and it's basically the same. You go to dashboard reports, you select time analytics report, and under that, you select category time analytics. Here, you can quickly see how much time is being spent doing tasks and activities under these categories. Finally, you have the people time analytics report, which comes in handy when you are trying to evaluate your team's performance and to see if certain team members are overutilized or underutilized. If you see that a certain team member is overutilized, you can definitely go ahead and see if that role needs more hiring. So that's an actionable insight you get from this data. If you see someone is underutilized, you can plan your resource allocation in such a way that they are given more work that helps them grow in their career, contribute more to your profit margins, and so on. So this is again a drill down of, so I've grouped it into role. That's the reason you're seeing roles. And under the accordion, you can see all the team members part of this role and their utilization, respective utilization. Again, you can use the time range to see it for a particular time period. And if you just click on any team member, it'll take you to their individual utilization analytics. Here you can see the billable utilization of this team member, how many timesheets they submitted, how many hours or days they apply time off for, their available capacity for, in general, and the number of hours they tracked, and so on. So we also give you planned versus billable utilization. So planned always comes from the time allocated for the team member, and billable is basically from the real time that they track on their projects. So you can see how much was allocated, out of which how much the team member actually track time on. So with this itself, you will know if the team member is utilizing their time to do project related work and so on. Here you can see the projects under which they track time, the category that they worked on, and the time. All of this is a drill down, not just for people time analytics. You can also see this for project time analytics. So here you can click on any project. It'll take you to a drill down of what happened in that project. And below you can see all the phases and tasks in the project and see how many hours were tracked on those phases, what are all the roles involved in the project and how much time they tracked, and what are all the categories under which someone worked on in this project, and so on. Finally, time tracking, time, as we already mentioned, time translates to money. And if you are using Rocketlane to do your financials and you have a certain billing type, As and when you track time, you can see your financial or revenue meter rise here. So as you go about tracking time, this particular meter will increase because everything is under one roof and in one platform. If you define what financial method to follow, and if you determine what resources need to be allocated, as these resources track time on the projects, you will see how much revenue they bring into your system, how much cost you incur by having these people work on the project, and how much profit you're making, because basically profit is revenue minus cost. So you can see the profit and the profit margin that you're making on these projects, all by seeing the real time tracking data. So if you're more curious on how this is done, and if you want to start using financials, as I already mentioned, it's up as a course in our academy, and you can always access it. So that's everything I wanted to cover for today. Okay. Also, would like to know that I've pinned two things on our chats. One is our Academy link. The next is the link to our product webinars where we've handled automations, how automation can basically be part of your entire onboarding cycle. How from start to end you can use automations to automate your entire onboarding cycle. So you can access those under the product webinar link that I gave. It's in YouTube. You can look at it whenever you want. And we also did, as I mentioned, a few webinars on automations that you can look at, but we'll definitely gather more use cases and do an elaborate session on it.